Well, obviously, our greatest thanks for all of you for coming here. I mean, some people even came quite a long distance, and we really appreciate that. And then we're kind of overwhelmed, but not that surprised at this turnout because we've been learning a lot about Chris. I should say, for those, I think I met everybody coming in, but I'm Chris's father, Charles Andrews. This is his mother, Diane, and his sister, Nicole. And we don't know how to do this. We're going by the seat of our pants, but that's what Chris would approve of, I think. So,
Amen.
And he damn sure wouldn't want a casket in a church. We know that. So I thought maybe each of us would say a little something about Chris, and then maybe Diane will do a song. And then I think we can call upon our friend Jill Silverthorne to do a little bit of a blessing ceremony that involves nature and the Native American way. She's done that for us many times with full moon ceremonies that we've held. And then I thought we would love to hear from all of you. Well, first I think I might take a chance to. There seem to be two groups of people here. The ones that he's become friends with, mostly in the last 10 years since he moved back from Santa Cruz. Although there may be some Santa Cruz people here too. And then the people, okay, all right. And then the people that knew him beforehand, like our hostess tonight, Faye Abrams, one of my dearest friends in the entire world, who is given her house here, and Faye and her two daughters, Paige and Mace, grew up with Chris. They were the same age, they played together, and so, you know, there's like different groups of people that knew Chris. So a lot of you are, of course, his Albuquerque now friends. So I thought I might just briefly introduce some of the other people that you might not know, and then turn it over to anyone who wants to say something. If you don't mind, if you can raise your hand, because instead of like going around the room and having anybody embarrassed that they don't really want to speak for whatever reason, it's just whoever wants to say something, raise your hand, I'll call on you. I think that'd be the most orderly way to do it. And I would also admonish that we don't want to be here till midnight, so keep it succinct. You know, we'd love to hear the stories, so maybe you could start out with telling us how you knew Chris, and then some story that typifies him for you. So if that sounds like a good idea, I'll start out by saying that for those of you who may not know his whole history, but he was born in Albuquerque in 1969, 2 months before my father died. My dad was very happy that he got to see Chris, you know, as he was born, but he was premature by 6 weeks. So we kept masks on, and my dad said, I don't even want to hold him, I'll wait till he's healthier and stronger. And of course, that opportunity never came. But of course, Chris heard stories, and in fact, we discovered in his day runner, he had 3 prominent photos. One was a goofy one of himself, another was a one of his mother, his birth mother, and the third one, I was very surprised, but it was a group shot of my dad in World War II in the military, you know, a barrack shot. So in going through his home, we were just absolutely floored by what we learned about him. Probably most of you know that he suffered from depression, and there were periods of times when he would just withdraw, but then he would come back. Well, for whatever reason, he kept an arm's length from us. So we didn't know if he had 2 friends in Albuquerque. So this is wonderful to see. And
A raise a toast, I
Yeah.
like that. Let's just raise a toast. Thank you. Heartwarming.
so I'll say that when he was 11, we moved to California. Every place we moved was for the best schools in town. So when it was, he went to a science magnet school, then he went to a great middle school, and then we made the sacrifice and the economic sacrifice to move to Beverly Hills because it was one of the 10 best high schools in the country at the time. And then he went to UC Santa Cruz for 2 years and spent quite a bit of time in Santa Cruz. He loved it there. It was, a great place, but it was also, Santa Cruz is Northern California, and it gets pretty dark, for long periods of time. So finally we convinced him that the sunshine of New Mexico, where he came from, would be a good idea. So he moved back here and moved into Tom Salazar's house. Where's Tom? Tom, there you are. Yeah, Tom had a cabin up in the mountains. It was great for Chris. Yeah.
Chris Road.
Yeah, he'd jump on his bike, and I remember one time we were visiting. I was on the porch, and a friend of Chris's came, and I said, "So you guys are going for a ride? Where are you going?" And he pointed to these 3 mountain ridges in the distance. He said, "Well, we're going to go up those 3 mountains." I said, "Okay, I'm going to sit here on the porch and think about that." And then this friend of his, who was 10 or more years younger, he said, Chris just always messes with you. He'll let you get close while you're riding, and then he'll take off like he hasn't even tried. He said, then I get close again, and he takes off again. So we heard that stories from a lot of people. He was really loved cycling, loved music, loved cooking and food, and most of all, loved people. So he moved back to Albuquerque. We were still in Santa Monica. He came to visit, not last Christmas, but the 3 previous Christmases. And we had really, really nice visits. So it was pretty mysterious to us that we would have this tremendous, totally friendly, loving visit. And then he'd go back home and he wouldn't return a phone call, wouldn't return a text, nothing. The last we've heard anything from him was a text a year ago March. So it's been, in a way, a joyous revelation to meet his neighbors, to meet his friends, to see how much different people, have put out to make this happen. And Aaron, where's Aaron Deal?
Oh.
Where's Aaron Deal? Probably taking care of something. Aaron has just been absolutely astounding. We couldn't have done this without him. And we met so many great people through him. But Aaron, God bless you. You'll be forever in our hearts. And I know it's been tough for a lot of you, and if I'm not crying, well, good for me, because I certainly have done a lot of it this week. So what else can I tell you about Chris? He got into skateboarding at one time. I'll never forget opening the door, and there he is holding a skateboard, and he's covered in blood. He's coming down some hill, and some car comes up, looks straight at him, and then goes right in front of him. And he just smashed against it. There was nothing he could do. So Chris had a lot of interest. He was very well read. He only finished 2 years at UC Santa Cruz, but my God, you look at his book collection, you talk to people that talk to him, and he was, an inquiring mind, a spiritual seeker, who was always investigating everything. He had a lot of books about how the mind works, because I think he felt pretty pissed that his wasn't really normal in all respects. And he just wanted to understand it and deal with it the best he could. So, probably, I guess that's all I have to say right now. Diane, maybe you could say something.
Well, Charles has been incredibly strong for me, and I gave myself permission to cry tonight, or to laugh, or to be stupid, and maybe do a song, because I love to sing, and it's a little thing maybe I could give to him. But one thing I remember was Beverly Hills had a radio station. Most schools didn't have their own radio station. And it was the Christopher the skanking hour, and it'd be like 4 o'clock, and I'd, hello?
Yes, I was just wondering if you could do a song for me by the Specials?
Because I could do voices, and I disguise them.
I'm wondering if you do something by Madness.
Yeah, and so it wouldn't sound like the same mother. And he used to call me Diane's Lee, and I called him, Crystal McFarley Burger. But, he gave us so much. When I met Charles, he was 12.
I was?
No! And so I completely felt, not like you might think, uh-oh, you got the man plus, the appendage. I thought I was so lucky to get Chris. And I said to myself, there's the proof in the pudding. this guy's gonna be a good man and a good father, and that's what I was looking for. So Chris was the example of, you know, the kind of child I would hope to have, which turns out Nicole got to be. So after that, I just feel like we gave him the freedom to be himself up in Santa Cruz with the White Raven coffee house, and you know, he became sort of a barista. And my favorite story was when the Hells Angels drove up and this big guy came up and Chris was like, and the guy goes, "Could I get just a little skim milk on it?"
Skinny latte.
So he gave us so much. I wish we could have been closer, but we know that he dealt with a lot, and that there were people like Aurelia who gave him the freedom to, or the permission to go through those dark places. And not too long ago, my parents, who treated him as a grandson, even though they didn't see him much, he gave my mom this necklace, and I've been wearing it every day. And as I hugged you guys, as you came in, it kept grinding into my solar plexus. And I thought, that's a good metaphor. I'm hurting, but I'm so grateful. And that's what I have to say.
Are you gonna say?
Let me add one story in there. Christopher, of course, loved music. And when I left New Mexico, I had a collection of 7,000 albums. We've got a photo of Chris when he was about 14 on one of our moves with a pickup truck full of these records, and he's holding a gasoline can, you know, because it's like, I love this music, but damn it, I'm tired of moving these things around.
I love rock, man. That's that little
Yeah. So, but when we moved to California, and especially when we moved to Beverly Hills, 7,000 records take up a lot of space. They had to go in. They had to go in the living room. They had to go in the living room. So Chris used to love to bring friends home from school, and they'd walk through the door and go, "What?" So that was his sort of introduction to people. Like, hey, I've got some cred here. I know what I'm talking about. And I remember there was a game, an Art LeBeau music game. Art LeBeau was like a guy from the 50s and 60s, right? So I played this game with a lot of trivia answers, and I'd play with two of his friends, and I'd come in third every time. You know? I was alive during that stuff. These guys were born. So he fell in with a crowd, especially in Beverly Hills High School at the radio station, that really loved music, and he stayed with them ever since. They were actually the only people he liked at Beverly Hills High School, as it turned out. So okay, I just wanted to add that music story.
Do you want to say something?
Well, it's sort of related. Chris was my older brother. He's about twice my age. So, you know, even though there was an age gap, it never felt like that because he was always so good with me and natural, whatever age I was, if I was 6 or 12 or 16. And, you know, because we didn't get to see him all the time, I was reminded every time I saw him of what a special thing it is to have a brother, to have an older brother. Because I don't know if anyone else I can talk to where I can mention, you know, Fishbone and Gary Newman and Hank Williams all in the same breath and have it somehow make sense. And if that's you too, then please come find me after.
Here, here.
And also, I know I haven't gotten to talk to all of you, but I would love to, you know, get to know you all, because Chris was a very thoughtful person in every aspect of his life, including the people he surrounded himself with. And I think that, you know, seeing all of you, it makes a whole lot of sense that you're friends with Chris and you're his closest companions. And I'm really grateful that he had all of you and you had him. You know, it's been a tough week, but like they said, it's really been a blessing to get to know all of you and all the help that we've gotten. It's a good way to send him off. Is to meet all of you wonderful people, and I hope we can all stay in touch. And thank you for being here tonight.
I'd like to give a special acknowledgement here to Alex Euler. Did I say your name right? Euler.
Bueller.
A dear friend of Nicole's who called her up and said, I'm coming to help. So he hopped on a plane Thursday, came out here, and he's been a huge help ever since. You know, not only in moving things around and all that's necessary, but in giving Nicole the hugs when she needed them. So Alex is quite an extraordinary guy.
Thank you, Alex.
Diane, did you want to do that song?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get it over with so I don't have to be nervous or some craziness.
This is a song I wrote. It's about. It was for a play, and it's about not necessarily figuring out easily who you are, being a little bit of a misfit. But I thought I'd sort of dedicate this to Chris. And Nicole, I hope, will sing with me. I would like to be an eagle, making lazy circles in the sky, gliding on a current in canyon, never asking who am I. Chris, you just the same.
Oh yeah, like me.
Forever
Searching, trying to see where you fit in. Maybe from the vantage of ego, being different isn't a sin. You can go to extremes and rattle some cages and paint in black and white, but you still need to find some kind of balance when you lay your head down at night. Chris, you were a saint and a sinner, no more or less than the rest of us. If you can remember the eagle, you'll know you're truly blessed. Yes, no matter how you're dressed.
Well, nothing can really follow that, but we would love to hear from all of you, and we tried to figure out, we didn't want to go around the room, because some people may just not be comfortable with saying anything, so, like I said, you know, if you raise your hand, you know, I'll point to you, and that might be a good way to do it. But first, I thought, like I said, we might be wrong, but we feel like the room is kind of divided into those that, you know, are Chris's friends now and have been for the last 10 years, and then some people that go further back. So you all mostly know each other, so I thought maybe I'd introduce you to some of the people here that were, you know, part of an earlier part of his life and continued, and then. Oh, and the ceremony.
Just a short show.
Okay, well let me do that first, and then we'll do the ceremony. Does that sound okay? Okay.
It's your show.
Okay. It's Chris's show. It's Chris's show. So Jill Silverthorne is our dear friend. She's lived in a lot of places. Albuquerque's one of them, in and out, back and forth. I actually was, when I was arts and media editor of the UNM Lobo, was putting her photo in the paper, and also Tony Comito, who used to be known as Michael Anthony, a magician. And years before I met them, I had promoted their careers, so you can blame me for that. But Jill has been such a close friend. We call her Auntie Jill, and she's just been amazing and been so close to our family. And Tony, while we've been here, has just he and Chris spent a lot of time together, which I wasn't entirely aware of, and they were pretty close. And Tony has just stepped in and done so much for us too. A lot of people I can't see, but I have to name Tom Salazar. Back there, raise your hand, Tom. Who's known Chris since he was in diapers, literally. Tom's one of Tom's ex-wives, and Chris's mom took ballet together. So, you know, we'd be there waiting for the class to be over and pick them up, and there was Chris crawling around in diapers. So Tom has known him forever, and as I told you, he lived in his home when he got there. And Tom's son Justin is back there, and Justin has known Chris for an awfully long time, and he owns JJ's Pizza, where Chris worked for a long time. I've never had a JJ's Pizza, but I've heard they're the best in the world. And and Tom's daughter Savannah is here too. Hello, Savannah. And I want to acknowledge my friends Ted and Lori sitting right here. Ted Freeman opened the first underground record store, if any of you know what a record is. But, yeah, that's true, yeah. So I got to know Ted, and it was called Gold Street Circus, and Chris and I, when he was very young, lived on Gold Street. We were just around the corner. We spent a lot of time there. You know, I got a lot of review albums from writing as a music critic, and I'd take them to Ted and sell them and get the albums I wanted. So Ted lives in Santa Fe now. He and Lori have both been teachers for years, and they knew Chris very well and loved him, and we're glad they made the trip down. Okay, who else is here from
Steve
Chris's
Schroeder's here.
former life? Steve Schroeder, speaking of records. Where are you, Steve?
And Lara.
Steve?
Bueller?
Where?
There is one outside. Yeah, there is.
Okay, forget it. If you're not here, I'm not going to introduce you. Yeah. Where's Lara?
I'm here.
Lara, right there. Thank you so much. Besides Faye's daughters, Pam, Mace, and Paige. Mace and Paige, where are you? You're both way back there. Okay, in the kitchen, right, which is a place for them to be because they're such good cooks. But Paige and Mace and Lara were all grew up together.
Well,
I mean,
Chris and Paige and Melissa, she was Wendy at that time, all went over to Rhonda's, Lara's mom's house.
right.
And so Hope and Lara and Wendy and Melissa and Chris hung out together a lot while they were young.
Yes, and Rhonda, Lara's mother, had a big house, and so the adults would be on the top floor and the kids would be on the bottom floor doing God knows what. And I think they had a great time doing that. So I haven't seen much of Lara for a long time, so I'm glad that she's here. And obviously, Mace flew down from the Bay Area. You know, as soon as she found out, she said, "Mom, it's family. I'm coming." So that was very much appreciated. Okay, who else is here from the old days or some other
Chicken Leslie
segment?
Alcorn, did they make it?
Did they make it? Chicken Leslie? Okay. All right. So I think that hits it all. So we'll have a little ceremony led by Jill Silverthorne, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Okay.
As we bring together these diverse circles of friends and groups, let's just bring together a circle of friendship and love here tonight. I'm going to call forth the energies from the four directions, which Chris, being the balanced guy he was, really exemplifies characters from each of those directions. In the east, which is springtime, sunrise, it's illumination. It's the element of air. And like they were singing about the eagle, it reminds us to get above our problems, gain some perspective, get the big picture in life. And the sunrise, the illumination, going through all of Chris's books, realizing what a brilliant mind he had, and diverse, interested in so many things, and so good at so many things. And then as you move south, it's the element of fire, passion. It's the little creatures close to the earth. And it's where you pay attention to detail. And boy, was Chris good at that. Most homes you'd go into to organize, it would be chaos, not Chris's. This goes here, there's this and this and this. And you just have to, it's so well organized, and he's so, I was getting rid of beer bottles and the cases were dated. I was like, January 17, November 16. He's that organized, but it's also good for us to remember to take time to pay attention to the details and the little things in life. And I think of the little four-legged creatures, but I like coyote in the south because coyote's the trickster, and it's summer, you've planted your seeds in the spring. Now it's long, warm summer, you just tend them, and you play, and you pursue your passions. And we saw so much of that in Chris, his passionate intensity, whether it's biking or gardening or cooking. He did it well because he paid attention to those details. And as we move around to the west, it's the time of the harvest. It's the earth sign. And these are the, like deer, tall grazers. There's time of abundance. The harvest is in, there's plenty. It's the time for going through what you have planted. When you bring in the crop, you go through the seeds and say, these aren't serving me, these weren't good, and you throw that stuff in your life away. But this was a good harvest. This brought me these friends. This is what I'm going to pursue for the next season. And I think that with that grounded earth part, well, we all know he loved to have his hands in the soil. He liked growing. He was a fabulous grower. And he also had obviously grown a harvest of friends, and an abundance of friends here, and quality of people that reflects beautifully on the life this young man has lived. And as we move to the north, the winter is dream time. It's the element of water and its changing ability to go from rain to steam to boiling to frozen. And I think that represents so much of what Chris experienced emotionally. His changing, dealing constantly with the ups and downs and changes, but not running from it, grasping it, working towards gaining mastery of it. And it's where he is now. This is the element. It's bare, goes into hibernation, and the stories are told in winter while the spirits sleep. So we embrace him as he goes into the dream time, and we will remember his stories in our future to share with our children. And so I close the circle for now and embrace all of us. We'll let it go at the end of the evening. But thank you for all coming and sharing and appreciating the complete life of a very interesting man. Hope.
Oh. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you,
I think you touched a lot of hearts with that.
And there's room right up in this little nook here if there's a few people that want to try to sit. There's room for about 3 more people.
Yeah. So we would love to hear from you. If there's anyone who isn't crying or blowing their nose and would like to share something, we would love to hear it. Tony.
Thank you. Well, you know, I met Chris when it was just Chris and Charles. And they came to my house in Albuquerque 40 years ago. And Chris was in a little Cub Scout uniform. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And Charles, that was one of the great things to involve him in the Scouts. And so he came to do a magic lesson because I'm a magician. And you know, Chris had a great sense of humor. And I was fortunate enough to move back here 7 years ago and renew my friendship with Chris. And you know, I think if we all close our eyes, we can still see his smiling face. And I think if we listen, we can still hear him. So he's still here. Now, Chris enjoyed my gallows sense of humor. And when George Carlin was asked what he would like on his headstone, he said, I think it should say, he was too hip for the room.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tony.
I was lucky to have got to know him again.
Thanks, Tony.
Who's next? Let's see, there's a hand over there. All right.
So, I mean, I've had so many just incredible experiences with Chris. I met him when he started working at the co-op. I was a brand new dad. My daughter, who's 10, who's here running around, was just born. And there was so many things we just immediately bonded over: music, bicycling, transcendentalism, everything. And he just quickly became one of my best buds. And so, I mean, I have so many stories I could share, so many experiences. But I'm gonna share the experience that I had with him. That every time I look in the mirror, I'm gonna think of him. I have a big scar right here on my shoulder. We used to ride a lot. All of us. We had so many friends. We just ride our bicycles together. I could never fucking catch him.
He weighed 100 pounds.
And he was so fast.
I feel bad.
No one
I couldn't catch him.
So, one time I was going through a really rough time in my life. I was living with my mom and my stepdad with my daughter. I was a newly single dad with a kid who was a little over a year old. I was going through some hard times. Emily was there. Her and Chris and Sandra was there. It was right before I moved down to the valley. I lived next to Sandra, but me and Chris were riding a lot. He was always kind of getting me to kind of come out of my shell and just kind of get me in a good headspace. And cycling was a big part of that. And so we decided he wanted to take me out to this place called White Mesa, way out. It's like towards Jimenez. So we drive out there with our mountain bikes, we're riding. He kind of gives me a basic rundown of the course. And we're about halfway through it. We're kind of riding along the spine of this mountain, and there's like these rolling hills like this, right? And so he's in front of me, and he's just taking these hills, just going, you know, like literally jumping a hill to the next, and I'm just right behind him trying to keep up. And the last one, he just kind of goes down, just straight down, and I didn't know there was this descent there. And so I'm right behind him, I'm flying, I'm right behind him, and we hit the flat, and I was on his tail, and I just squeezed the handlebars too hard, and before I knew it, I saw the ground come to my face. And I wrecked, I wrecked, I stood up, and he stopped, and he looked around, and he was like, dude, are you all right? And I stood up, and I was like, yeah, I'm right. I'm looking around, I'm kind of in shock, and he's like, wait. He's like, dude, your shoulders. Your shoulder lower. Your shoulders, you dislocated your shoulder or something. And he grabs it, he's like, here, let me try it. I'm like, dude, no. So he popped it in for you. Yeah, I'm like, don't touch me, dude. So we see 550 on the highway right there. And I'm like, all right, dude, what are we gonna do? Chris was always so good about thinking on his feet. He always had a backup plan to his backup plan. And he was like, dude, how about I'll help carry your bike, you ride your bike along 550, I'll haul ass back to the car, I'll meet you at the turnoff. Alright, let's do this. So my bike's all busted, my handlebars are all twisted, and I got these neoprene arm warmers, I tie them, and I'm kind of make this makeshift sling, and he like helps me get my bike to 550, and he's like, alright dude, you're gonna see my taillights. When you don't see my taillights anymore, that means I'm almost to the car. Right? So I'm riding along 550, he takes off to back in the dirt to the car, and I just remember just semis, cops, just passing me. I'm riding along 550 on my busted bike. The moon is coming up, it's huge. The moon, it's like this giant full moon. It was like the first or second week of October. It was cold, and I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing out here? What am I doing? And I looked at my cell phone, everybody had flip phones at that time, and it wasn't smartphones, and it was broken, and I was like, oh shit. But I always knew Chris's number by heart. I was like, all right, if I need to, I can tell him, just call 553-2585. So I ride 8 miles back to the turnoff. I get to the turnoff, I look over, I see headlights. He's just like rally carring. I see dust and everything. He gets to the turnoff, I pull out my phone, I'm like, what am I, I can't even call him. But I see him, he picks me up, and we drive back. I end up spending the next 3 nights with him. I broke my collarbone. He nursed me at the cabin, let me stay there as long as I needed. And driving back, I was just in agony. And one of the funniest things I've ever been telling me was, I like looked in the mirror in his little flip down mirror, and I was like, oh my God, dude, I'm green. He's like, man, you're green, you're strong, you're like the Martian Manhunter. I didn't laugh so hard. But yeah, he moved his bed, he let me sleep on his bed, he crashed on the couch for 3 nights, and yeah, together we got through that.
Yes.
So that's my story.
Well, that was a great story, and I just want to add, there was one time when Chris was living in LA, when he went riding in the Santa Monica Mountains by himself. He fell 50 feet down, crashed his bike, broke his collarbone, and carried the damn bike out by himself till he could get, rescued. So he was a pretty tough dude. Who else would like to tell a story? It doesn't have to be as harrowing as that one.
That was pretty extreme.
Hard to follow.
He killed it. Yeah, you guys gonna follow that one up?
Yeah.
Justin.
Chris didn't just have a lot of friends. He united a lot of people.
Yeah.
He kept people together. The people here and his friends don't adequately represent all of the people that he got to maintain relationships between. And so he was not just friends with everybody, but the central point of a lot of relationships. And those would go on for years and years. There's, as has been mentioned, there's a lot of people from La Montanita still here. And some of these people from La Montanita know some people from JJ's. And all of us have been able to maintain connections through Chris. And I'm afraid we might lose some of our connections now. So that's what I have to say about Chris.
I have a bike story. It's nothing like that one, but so I've known Charles. Charles is probably one of my oldest friends. I met Charles.
I'm not one of your oldest friends. You
But it's just that I feel like there's this whole circle, and sometimes things bring people back together. But Charles and I have seen each other over the years. And I remember Chris when he was a tiny baby, but I didn't really spend that much time with him. But there was always a connection through Charles, and maybe it was like 10 years ago. I used to race triathlon, and somehow I reconnected with Chris. He was visiting or something, and I was training for some race, and biking I wasn't as strong a biker as I was a runner and swimmer, and Chris was a great biker, and so somehow we connected, and he said, let's go for a ride. I said, okay, that'd be great. I said, I can't go that fast. He goes, that's okay, I'm not that fast either. So our little ride was up from here up to Edgewood, and on the front, it was like an 80-mile ride or something. And all I remember is that, you know, he just made me feel like I could just be the rider I could be, and that's, you know, it just made me realize that it doesn't matter how fast I was or whatever, even that I was like 20, 30 years older than him, but and he dropped me numerous times, which, you know,
But he waited
was a
for
good
you.
thing.
That's
Yes,
the
wait. But anyway, it was the one time I rode with him, and it was 80 miles. We were out there for 4 hours, and so it was a great time to spend with him. But I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. And I wanted to add one thing to what you said, Justin. It's been told to us that your place, your business was like a family, and that for at least a couple of times when Chris just didn't make it in, your response wasn't like, well, fuck him, he's fired. It was, he's family, and you gave him a break, and I really appreciate that.
Well, you know, I mean, it wasn't like I was just not firing him when he didn't show up. It was an integral part of the store and the culture of the store, and it wasn't just that I treated him like family. It was that he treated me like family too, and he had my best interests and the best interests of the store in mind all the time.
So thank you. And now, I just need to say, you guys out there,
Okay.
hello? We can't hear in here if you guys are being that, thank you. I'm a teacher. Here's something.
Hey, my name's Luke. I've just spent more time with Chris than I did, but when we did, we had a lot in common. And I'm hearing about a lot of things about him that really ring true to me. And we had a lot in common. And you talked about his darkness and depression. It's just a label. You know, you talk about how he had a special way of bringing people together because he never really, if he brought himself down, no one else got brought down, right? He takes it home with him. The kind of person who smiled every day, who made you feel good all the time, who I never saw, besides being sarcastic, which was fantastic, and smart and intelligent and cutting, it was with a smile on his face and goodwill. I just want to say that I think that Chris was not broken, except that the world might be, because I feel like a lot of people don't quite belong here, and I'm not going to get into any goals among us, but like, there's some people who just, the world hurts you, and I feel like Chris is strong, and he's totally fine and fixed and wonderful, but yeah, it's rough for some of the people out there. So I think Chris is one of them, and I'd like to say that, easy to love.
Yeah.
That's all I want to say.
I want to raise a glass to that.
Cheers.
I'd like to say something.
Please.
My name is Chris. Also, I feel like everybody here feels like we're all Chris's best friend. Like, oh, I know him better. No, I know him better. Like, that dude, like, he's something else, man. I mean, like, if I needed something, it's not that I needed it, but I would just call him and he was there every time. Like, that door was open every time. I mean, you had to shut it quick because those cats might get out, but I mean, that door was open every time. Like, that dude was incredible. He had stories. Like, I mean, when I spent the night at his house, he would talk me to sleep. I was like, Chris, can I please get a word in? Can I not get a word in? Like, finally, Chris, it's my chance to talk. Thank you, Chris. But, I mean, the dude is so full of energy, and, like, his stories, like, this dude was something else, man. And no matter how much, sometimes I'm like, all right, Chris, like, somehow I would ask him the next question, even though I was sick of like 2 sentences ago. Like, he was just so full of everything, so full of life. I mean, I don't know. I'm glad to share the name with him. We might see each other in the future. Like, that dude he was awesome, and I'm sure we all can't believe that we're here, but we're here, and thank you everybody for being here. He thanks you guys too. Like,
Yeah, he does.
that dude is amazing. You guys had a great person in your life. Thank you and this beer is awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
I tell everybody about this beer.
That was the shit right
Chris, you teach teach me about how to grow good ganja.
Cheers.
Do it, man.
I'll speak. I was also from the, as Chris would refer to it, as the fraternal brotherhood of Chris's. I was also Chris, and he would call and leave me messages and call me on the phone and tell me he was looking for dues for the annual fundraiser. And, I met Chris at the co-op. I was co-op family, hired by Aaron Deal.
He just walked outside to get
Walked
a beer.
outside and met Chris immediately. And he came up with like military. It was like Captain Chris and Sergeant Chris. And I was like, oh. Overcome, adapt, and improvise. Here we go. I climbed trees for most of my life, so coming into a retail environment and stocking milk was kind of out of my element. And Chris was family immediately, made me feel at home. Everything I experienced with him was celebration. He shared Thanksgiving with me and my family. My wife has disappeared.
She's back
Some
here.
other folks in this room have shared Thanksgiving dinners at my home. I went to concerts at Red Rocks Amphitheater with Chris. My life with him was celebration. And I'm happy to celebrate.
True that. True that. True that. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, Chris.
I'd like to say something. Yeah, also I met Chris while working at the co-op, and similar to your experience, yeah, he's, really helping hold space in that store, and just like you said about him helping with the culture, he's one of those people for sure, and coming in, learning from him and so many other people that are here today because of our connection with him and with each other, that family that we built there. I got it, and it was a totally different work environment that I'd ever been in. And again, we're all here because of that, for all the the politics and the complexities of the co-op. We're working there because we give a fuck about our community.
It'd be great if they gave raises for what you
Yeah. But yeah, I'm so grateful to be part of this and to just see what his life was, and also, yeah, it's a tough world to live in,
Sure, yeah.
There's a lot of injustices. It's not. What we're put through, what we have to do to carry on, and so to just hold reverence to somebody with that open of a heart, that they feel that. And that us, in this family, and what we stand for, do our best to make it easier for people to live here. And to look out for each other. Because it might be one of us tomorrow. It might be one of us today. It probably is one of us today. May we just all support each other and help make it easier. And with that, I would like to, if you mind me using the guitar, I'd like to sing a song.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
That was really beautiful. Is it Robert?
Yeah.
That's Robbie.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that it struck me that all of you represent something. You wouldn't have been Chris's friend if you didn't stand for something. He just didn't want to deal with the people that didn't think in a way that he felt was good for humanity. So all of you have such integrity, or you wouldn't be here as his friends.
I'm gonna see if I can get through this.
You got it. You got it. We're here.
We'll hum along when we start crying.
So this one's called My Song, and except for tonight, it's Chris's song.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I tell myself that I'm unsupported, I wake up crying. Take a minute to adjust my side to the ceiling patterns, the morning lights pouring in. Ooh, this is new. This is dinner plans and timeless hours. Who fit the shoe? It is I when I stand in my power, and you got your arms too. I'd like to see it on the flagpole at the high. I'd like to be there when your style goes into its bloom. I think it's happening right now. Every time I tell myself that I'm unsupported, I know I'm lying. There's a wave of love that's carried me on through all of my days, from birth until dying. What shall I choose? Must I hold my palm out or occasionally cower? How do you do? When I forget with the same, my triumph becomes sour. So I'll let my strings get pulled and test the rest until they're full. Mess with the best, it's better than school. Dream big and then take steps towards it. Oh yeah.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something.
Please.
My name is Gary, longtime friend of Chris's.
You can step towards the hallway maybe and we can hear you. That's good. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, so I remember meeting Chris first day that I was employed at JJ's Pizza 13 years ago. 17 years old. And I remember meeting him and wondering, what the fuck is this guy thinking? This guy was so nice. And I couldn't believe that anybody could be that nice without having some kind of a fucking angle. But getting to know him, I learned he's a genuinely good person, and he was a positive force in my life. He was there for me through some hard shit, and I'm gonna miss him. It's hard to believe that he's gone.
He was that fucking nice.
Yeah, it really was.
He was that fucking nice, bro.
Yeah, he was.
He was such a nice dude. He was.
Thank you.
Okay. But I wrote something because I was too nervous. I didn't think I could speak off the cuff. So. But I don't think I can read it now. I need my reading glasses.
You want mine?
And I'm going to assure you that the kitties are in good care because I have them.
Yeah.
So, oh, whoa, no, that'll work.
I've got regular reading glasses.
So forgive me if this sounds
These are
scripted,
regular
but
readers.
One more to try.
Try these.
Yeah.
Not this one. These are just readers from Walgreens.
so I met Chris in September of 2008 when I started working at the co-op. We discovered our mutual interests in cycling, music, and food, which has been mentioned several times tonight. He became my first friend in Albuquerque. On an early date to Duran's Pharmacy, I think I fell in love with him over a plate of green chili chicken tamales. Both of us temporarily giving up our vegetarian diets. Our love of music kept our relationship interesting and passionate. I turned him on to bands like Guided by Voices, from my hometown in Dayton, Ohio. While he exposed me to Jeff Buckley, Queens of the Stone Age, and Tool, among others, I would never have become a Tool fan if it had not been for Chris. And the Tool concert he took me to a year into a relationship blew my mind. Okay, where am I going with this? Well, in a relationship, anybody who's been in a long-term relationship, sometimes the little things that our partners do become annoying. Although I appreciated and loved Chris's skill in the kitchen, I was also driven nuts by his meticulousness. I'm a fast cook. I throw shit together. I chop ingredients like the Tasmanian devil. I can get food on the table like a short order cook. If Chris started prepping a dinner by 6 p.m., we'd be lucky to eat by 9. Each and every vegetable was beautifully and perfectly julienne. Ingredients were measured and added in just the right fucking order. So if I hadn't passed out on the couch before dinner was done, I was always treated to a sublime meal. I will always remember Chris's attention to detail, his generosity and kindness. That's it.
Thank you for taking Huck and Scooter.
Yeah.
Scoot.
Oh, that reminds me, I don't know if all of you know that he may have named Huck Huck because Chris was a cousin of Mark Twain. My mother's maiden name was Clemens. And he was always very proud of that. Somebody want to say something over here?
Yeah, I was going to say something.
Tristan.
I'm trying to get my courage up here. I spent a lot of time with Chris back in the day. Spent a lot of time eating his dust on the bike. You know, he also got me into Queens of the Stone Age and Tool. And Chris one time told me that if you lived in this world and you didn't get occasionally down and depressed, then there was something wrong with you. And I think that sticks with me today. And that meant a lot to me then. And I got a lot of mixed emotions going on right now because I haven't talked to Chris in a couple of years and I feel pretty shitty about that.
Don't.
No.
Please.
But I love the guy and we're here to celebrate. So
Thanks for being here.
You're here, man.
We're talking to him now, dude.
Yeah, you're here, man.
I'd like to say something. My name is James. I also met Chris in the summer over a decade ago. I think many of us in this room have talked about balance. And balance is always one of those things I struggle to really define in my life, both as a young man and as I sit here today. One of the things that I remember about Chris was I'm an Albuquerque native, and every morning I would look up at the Sandia Crest and think to myself, one day I'm going to conquer that mountain. During some pretty dark times in my life, I would look at that mountain and think about how I can conquer my imbalance with my emotions and my depression. And one of the first first individuals that told me you can make it was Chris Andrews. My love for cycling was shared with Chris. One of the first individuals that ever told me that I could make it up there, pedal stroke by pedal stroke, was Chris Andrews. One of the things that I remember about Chris was he would tell me, James, you've got such flavor on that bike. It's hot like wheat chili. But you don't have any cadence. And you don't know what cadence means. For those of you who share that same passion, cadence is a hard thing to find. Not only on the bike, but in everyday life. One of the first individuals to ever follow me up that mountain was Chris Andrews.
Yeah.
Someone in this room climbed that mountain with me for the first time. And when I got up that 14 miles up to the top, the only thing I could do was clip out of my cleats like a cyclocross person, throw the bike on my shoulder, and run to the top. I've been to the top many times, but there was nothing like that one time when I finally conquered that mountain. And I remember getting to the top and looking down on my hometown and breaking down like I am today. I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna continue to find that cadence and that balance in my life. And I'll continue to ride free as he told me to do every day.
Yeah.
I have something to say. I'm going to say it from down here, though. I'm Spring. I'm the mother of Aaron's children.
It's my baby mama.
I too am co-op family. I, met Aaron through the co-op, met Chris through the co-op. The whole deal. I feel like there's a theme with this when we struggled in hard times. After the birth of my son, I really struggled with depression. I was hospitalized for it, and when I came out of the hospital, I remember Aaron saying, if you're willing, I want to take you over to Chris, and I want you to sit down, and I want you to have a conversation with him. And so we did. I did, and we did. And him and he spent an entire night with me just talking to me and telling me, girl, you got this, and we're gonna make it through, and I have your back, and you have my back, and we're gonna do this together. And it was the first time anybody had really sat down and had an honest conversation with me about what that looks like, and about that some days aren't going to be always cheery and wonderful and amazing. So it was so perfectly what I needed in that moment, and mixed with humor and lightness and light and love that he was giving to me. And we separated and we went our way and have continued to co-parent, and every time he was so welcoming and open, and we always had that beautiful connection. And the last time I saw him was our daughter's birthday party, and I was sitting in his front room, and the door just blows open, and in he comes, and his hair's long, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and this crazy beard, and these sandals, and he's holding this crystal for my kid, and he's like, hey, re-having that connection with him, and he took me aside at that party, and we went into the living room, and he said, you know, I want to check in. How are you, girl? Are we good? Everything's good, you know? And the same, how are you? We're good. And so to know that that connection was still there, that it's still, we had that, and you know, to be in the darkest of dark places that I was in, for this person to come into that space and bring his light and bring his love and help to pull me out of that was a very special thing, and I'll forever miss him and forever feel that light that he brought.
Thank you.
I don't give anybody else a chance to say, but your story just brought me to this thought that, you know, in all these stories we've heard, you may give me and Diane credit for raising a great person, but I'm telling you, he was born that way. You know, when I was a single father, I used to have to tag along, and I'd take him to parties where it was all adults, and I'd always have 4 or 5 people come up and go, I've been talking to your 5-year-old son, and I'm blown away. Or your 6-year-old son, or your 8-year-old son. So, I don't know where it came from, you know, I just tried to get out of the way and let it be what it was. So, he didn't just learn this overnight somehow. There are strange saints that are born, angels that come to us.
Thank you for being the conduit.
My privilege, our privilege. Anybody else? I'll sit here till you got the stories to tell. I'm just enjoying this so much.
So I haven't known Chris for nearly as long as a lot of people have, only for about a year, maybe a year and a half. But just like all of you, like, God, you'd be like down and out, just like, oh, today sucks. You're like, well, I just made some smoothie. You want me to bring it over? It's got kale and like some other stuff, and then you drink it. It's all delicious. And you're like, whoa, I thought this was gonna be like gross, but it wasn't. Or like one day, you know, it's like, well, I'm not feeling so hot. Well, here's some hot toddy stuff, and da da da. And this is the beer for when you feel better. And it's like some chocolate milkshakey stout thing, and I'm like, this is amazing. And we'd always go out to eat, and we'd go to places that, you know, had the vegetarian, and I'm a meat eater, so we always had to make sure it had both. And one time he even went with me and my mom to the movies, and she's disabled, so of course he like helps her out, gets her all set up, makes sure to come pick her up after the movie. It's just so awesome. And I'm actually really jealous that I feel like all of you guys had that same feeling. I thought I was the only one. No, it's like amazing. It's like, yeah, how could somebody be that awesome? And, you know, he'd go through dark times, and it was just something that I definitely let him go through because I'd be too afraid of making him feel like it was not normal, and I needed him to feel like he had that space with me, and that was okay, and I would never judge him for it. And seeing you is a trip, man. Like, you look so much like him. Like when he smiles, and it's hard.
And if you call on the phone, you couldn't tell which one was that.
And you guys talk a lot. Like both of you. It is so cute. Oh, but I wouldn't get to hear one of his long goal stories right now.
There was somebody in the back that had raised their hand. Yeah.
I think it's so amazing to hear what each one of you guys has shared about Chris, and it's gratifying and it's beautiful, and it is so true. He treated everyone with such kindness, and he was a gentleman, and he was a riot, and I'm glad that James told that story about the mountain. As I was driving up here tonight, the sun was really only just hitting that one spot where he used to live. It was kind of like real gloomy and dark for around the whole rest of the sky, and just in that one spot there was just like this beam of light hitting, you know, where he used to live out there, which is where he was living when I met him, which I think was over 10 years ago. And I think of Chris as, I mean, I think like all of you, I find it really incomprehensible that we're all here talking about him in this way. And I think of him as just such a generous person and such a killer, you know, host, and someone who was always so accommodating and cheerfully there for you. I think of him really as this, like, he was so sprightly. He had this very sprightly way about him. And that grin.
Yeah.
And he was witty as fuck. He was so keen and so interesting to talk to, and so many interesting conversations and stories, and so much enthusiasm. And I will carry inspiration from him in terms of all that he has shared with us, and that enthusiasm and that love of music and being on two wheels and being on the fringe and just being a sensitive and beautiful soul. He was just such a dear soul. And I don't know where he is, but we all love you, Chris.
We do. Well, if I may add a comment on top of that, we really appreciate so much everyone offering their stories, and I know there's a lot of sadness for all of us, but you know, Chris was very involved with nature, and when we got the news in Santa Monica that he had passed, well, I'll let Diane tell about the seagull.
Yeah, we live by the ocean, 6 blocks away from the ocean in Santa Monica, but we don't see seagulls that far away. They're always on the sand. But I was laying on the bench just sad, and all of a sudden this seagull landed on the roof, and it didn't really look at me or act like it was Chris, but I thought it was Chris. At least I imbued him with that, and I just said, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm sorry. And I just tried to give him a release from this world. And maybe that animal totem was a good symbol for me, because afterwards I felt light, and each time we saw a roadrunner this morning, and we've seen other birds, and I'm choosing to say, hey Chris, thank you, for dropping by.
Well, I think he may be doing that, and I wouldn't put it past him. The next day after the seagull, we had 3 raccoons come on the wall and look at us. You know? A lot of people don't like raccoons, but I thought, Chris, okay, you want to choose a raccoon? That's all right, 3 raccoons. Yeah, and then this morning, I mean, I don't know how it is now, but when I was growing up in Elm Creek, the roadrunners were something you saw mostly, you know, outside of town, the desert. So I get in the car this morning to go over to pick up some blue corn donuts at Whole Foods. And I pull the car out, and here's this big gray bird, I think it's a bird, sitting in the middle of the street. And I'm going, what the hell, you know? So I slow down, I honk the horn a little, he doesn't move. So I go around him, and I look over, he's gone. He's gone. So I go a little bit further up, and I stop the car, and I got out, and there he is in the yard. You know, so just for fun, I said, Chris? So it was a roadrunner. He was hanging around. He hopped on the fence. He stayed there. He went across the street, you know. I said hello. So, any kind of animal that appears that you think shouldn't be there at that moment, and doing something a little bit out of the ordinary, it might be Chris.
Barbara was hanging around here a lot today.
Yeah?
In fact, I think that Mace got some pictures.
I took some
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
I've
And
never been that close to a roadrunner.
I went out.
They're amazing.
I went out to just, like put something in the trash, and
freaking
he came out
dinosaurs.
between the two trash.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was like this, he was this close.
Well, he knew where we were staying. He knows you. So, it doesn't.
Well, I'll say
doesn't-
something related to that. Chris was close to nature, and if there's one thing that you can do every day to remember Chris, it's recycle.
And drink beer.
Rinse it out before you recycle it.
And do it often.
Best you can find anywhere.
Okay, well, so speaking of recycling, I do have day recycling in the kitchen for cans. And then there's also a corrugated open box, I think, in there too, for the bottles.
While we were looking through his home, I don't know, I know he was always big on Heifer International. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we still found a lot of material there, so that's something he really supported, worldwide.
And I wanted to say thank you to Barb for bringing the guitar that we were able to make music on tonight.
And does anyone have anything they want to say right now?
I would like to say something really
Please,
quickly.
please.
First of all, your song was amazing and beautiful and so touching. Though speaking of nature and his love for nature, I met Chris through my husband James, who spoke a little while ago, 9-ish years ago, and he quickly became our family friend. He was brought into our home with our children, and we immediately were drawn to him, loved him, and brought him into our family. One night I was working at the co-op in the produce section. Chris came in and at an hour that no one really shops, but he was there shopping. And he came to me, gave me a hug, wished the family well, and then we quickly began talking about citrus and how many seeds were in which citrus fruits and which citrus fruits had no seeds.
He told me the strawberries were the worst of the berries.
Yeah.
Strawberries did not give you shit compared to other berries.
Yeah. So, a conversation that was probably boring to most normal people, him and I totally geeked out on citrus seeds, and we were there for 45 minutes, maybe an hour, just like having this fascinating conversation. And that's what our conversations were always, fascinating. I always left every conversation with him enlightened, with a new perspective, gaining some form of knowledge and appreciation, and I'll carry that with me forever. Also, JJ's is our family pizza night once a month. Every night that we have that, we'll continue to celebrate him forever for what he gave us and what he shared with us in this life. So, to him, cheers.
Cheers. Nice.
Anyone else right now at this moment?
Carl,
Yes.
can I read a poem?
Sure. Please.
So this poem is called At Blackwater Pond by my favorite poet, Mary Oliver. And it feels appropriate. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, to let it go. to let it go.
Thank you, Mace.
Mace, that was beautiful. You know, I just want to add, it's not how many years you live, it's how you live your life.
Here, here.
So, where's the guitar? Diane and Nicole, would you?
I want to say something.
Oh, please do, yeah.
This is just that Liz made a really beautiful altar
Oh,
over
yes.
there, and there's a book that everybody, it would be great for people just to write something in, because it will be for the family. And there's a picture of Chris on the front, and she just made such a beautiful altar.
She did a great job.
And brought the flowers and everything, so.
Thank you,
And
Faye.
everybody who came to help out, and the way they arranged the backyard, I mean, I wish I could leave it that way. I mean, and I know that there are at least 50 people here, and to have it, to have you all fit in and be able to be here has been great.
Thank
Really
you
great.
for the home. Thank you for your hospitality.
Thank you.
So there's just one last thing, and I know, unless someone wants to add something that
It's never too late.
It's never too late.
And don't forget, even after we leave here, it's never too late.
By the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down, and there we read, when we remember Zion. For the wicked carried us away, captivity required from us a song. How can we sing King of a song in a strange land? So let the words of our mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight. Oh, for I. Let's hum it. For the wicked carried us away, captivity required from us a song. How can we sing King of a song in a strange land? Repeat. How can we sing King of a song in a strange land? One more time now. How can we sing King of a song in a strange land?
To Christopher.
Thank you, everybody, for
Shall I
being here.
close the circle?
Thank you, Joseph, for making,
Yes.
for the videography. And Jill, please close our circle.
Well, actually opening it. Well, so much of what we've heard tonight carried on our words, our breath, the air from within our lungs out into the universe to Chris. Those stories we heard when Chris was at his best and keeping you awake, Chris, and telling all of, he had so much going on in his mind. Let's keep that close to us and remember that when we think of him. And the passion of the South Way, the warmth of his personality, the breadth of his heart. How, no matter what he went through, it gave him such empathy and compassion for all of us. And we need to remember that if we feel a little sad and alone, open our heart the way that Chris did, and we'll be fuller for it. And in the West, this harvest of friendship, this abundance, the abundanza of love that we've shared here tonight, I want to keep that close as well and honor the way he cared for the earth. We should carry that on in his name. Do the things that Chris would do for each other. Try and hold your friendships in the way that he was saying that Chris brought you together. Let's all of us make a little extra effort to reach out and keep those connections in the name of Chris and in his memory. And in the north, with the fluctuations of water and emotion, and we're talking about the highs and lows, but my philosophy has always been moderation was to go from one extreme to the other. So, you know, don't be sad and you're sad, or don't think that I must always be high when you're high. Because on balance, it balances. And that is another way to find balance in the world. To truly embrace where you are in the given moment. And let that be your center when it fluctuates. So in the north, we say goodbye to you, Chris. Put you into the earth that you love so much. And know also that you rise again with the rain to come down on each of us in memories and in love and in affection for one another. So as you all go back into the world, hold the best of what Chris was for all of us. And the world will be better for it. So we release the spirits of the four directions as we release our friendships back into the community. And thank everybody for being here.
Oh, thank you, Jill.
Thank you,
Jill. Thanks, Jill.
Beautiful.
And with that, eat, drink, and be merry.
Yay!
Thank you. Yeah, for sure. Last week, and I was at all-night watching concert. It goes really good.
We need everybody in this room, please. Yeah, I know it's not easy, but if we could get everybody in this room, that would be great. Because you didn't come here to get left out. Sorry.
Chris was just looking for you. I'm here. Oh, is
There's room in the front if you wanna sit, would be fine with us.
We could put a few more people right here.
Anybody who's not old who can actually sit and get up again.
I am getting old. I might sit down and you might have to help me get around.
That's okay too.
Don't have family nearby though, so I'm